Psychiatry, Lang said, was a fake science, used as a system of political control to shore up a violent, collapsing society.
Look out for Charlie.
Okay, I am going to clue you in on a few things in this video. Agendas and reality. If you haven't seen The Octopus Murders: An American Conspiracy, it is worth the watch, if you watch it correctly. It's a documentary about a guy who is researching the death of a writer and a researcher named Danny Casolaro, and it follows this investigator around while he pursues the leads of this story and basically tries to make it appear as though the investigator is taking over where Danny Casolaro left off. So to give you the lowdown, Danny Casolaro looked into the DOJ's theft and subversion of Promise software, and it took him on a wild ride. He was ultimately murdered. But listen to what I'm telling you. When I first saw this documentary listed on Netflix's website, I immediately thought, like, what's their angle here? Why are they showing this? And are they going to skew the story and make it appear as though Danny Casolaro actually killed himself? Because they certainly aren't going to show this without some kind of agenda behind it. And to a degree, they did do this. But when I watched it the first time, I realized there was a much more sinister motive behind the production. And then after watching it for a second time today, I decided I needed to talk about it. See, what we have here is a classic bait-and-switch technique. And I'm sure a large portion of the people got through this 4-part documentary without even realizing that they were being influenced by it. You think you're watching a documentary on the Octopus Murders, but that isn't the case. Peppered in throughout the entire 4-part series is an underlying message. And that message is that digging into reality, corruption, or what intelligence agencies and people living off your tax dollars are up to will turn you into an antisocial basement dweller that no one wants to be around. And this research is what they refer to as conspiracy theory. I'm not joking. They are telling you that you will not have a fun and fulfilling life and you should stop. And that you should go back to being a clueless turd and enjoy eating hot dogs. And I'm not joking. This is exactly what this documentary of a documentary is telling you. It really is. People who knew Danny are thrown in every 10 or 15 minutes to talk about the effects that this investigation had on him. It would seem needless, except this is the actual intention of the documentary. It's not about the Octopus Murders. It's about how these people involved with these types of things are unstable and no one wants to be around them, or they're crazy. It's an absolute and total propaganda piece. As I said before, it is a bait and switch. Let's listen to Danny Casolaro's friend and ex-girlfriend talk about him and talk about what digging into the truth did to him. By listening to all these peppered in comments at once without all the other info around it, you can see what the message actually is. Let's check it out.
He left this wonderful life that he had, and he went with them. Danny's life used to be filled with fun and laughter and drinks and wine and food, and then that life took a turn. It was filled with this story, which changed him totally.
This story that changed him totally. So had Danny just not gotten involved with the corruption and shady dealings that were going on, he would still be enjoying barbecue and walks on the beach. That's what she's saying. And this is a constant theme. Let's keep going.
He was making calls late at night to various people he thought might be related.
So, had Danny stayed a normie and kept his head down, he wouldn't have turned into this man on a mission, and he would be enjoying his Milwaukee's best around his mediocre friends. That's the message. A man or woman should grow throughout their entire life. Some people thrive chasing mysteries. Some people like putting puzzles like these together. Just because you've outgrown drinking and partying with your mediocre friends does not mean that you've gone to the dark side. But in Netflix's typical agenda fashion, that is how this documentary is edited and put together. And I wonder how many people after watching this have said, you're like that guy from the Octopus Murders, just because somebody is looking into something. People don't realize, what a powerful weapon this kind of garbage is. Let's keep listening for a minute.
He talked on the phone with these creeps just about every night. It's almost like they were a network
It's almost like they were a network. They were a network of disinfo agents, you know. And, you know, she just says creeps, like they're just creeps. These are people that were involved with the government and intelligence that he was talking to. And she makes it sound like he was just on the phone with these sickos every night. You know, it's really weird.
That is how conspiracy people talk to you.
Now she's going to tell us how conspiracy people are.
Like, you really don't understand what's going on, and I feel, you know, really bad for you.
She's acting like she was a friend, but she was, like, more miffed that she couldn't keep up, you know? It's weird when you hear, like, people like this talk.
What happened between that man that I met in 1979 to the man driving to his death in West Virginia?
So it's all his fault that he was murdered. Do you see how this is framed? And if you watch this, if you have seen it, watch it again. And if you haven't seen it, watch it with this in mind, and you will see what the underlying message is. And after they've pounded you with this information about how much Danny was changed by investigating this, it's peppered in throughout the whole thing. They begin showing an older researcher talking about people needing to, quote-unquote, deprogram from this and go back to normie shit. I'm not kidding. Listen to this.
Are you going to deprogram yourself and go back to being a normal person again?
Many of the people involved with Promise Software are painted out to be nuts, including the inventor of Promise Software himself. The documentary filmmaker is in one of the episodes saying he's crazy or that he has lost his mind. I assure you, Bill Hamilton is not crazy, but somehow he too is depicted as being off his rocker. Everybody in this film is being depicted as crazy or nuts or whatever. Other than the Michael dude, who is driven insane and kind of over the edge by the DOJ and the DEA, being set up and sentenced to like 25 or 30 years, something like that. He's a little bit pushed over the edge, and I get it. But the rest of the people aren't. But they did this intentionally. All of it is intentional. And when we get towards the end of this propaganda piece, the guy who is trying to finish Casolero's story begins parroting the same types of messages about looking into things, and so does the documentary filmmaker himself, talking the same garbage. Here is the researcher.
I made a choice between learning the secret of everything, which like I realized I would never do, and being happy and having fun.
Are you going to go back to your normal, boring life, you know, and enjoy small things like movies or, you know, barbecues, instead of phone calls from the netherworld?
Phone calls from the netherworld. This is very, very dangerous, because when you look at this all taken out of the documentary, this is the real message of that documentary. It's not about Danny Casolero. It's about the dangers of being a researcher on the fringe, or what they call a conspiracy theorist. Let's listen to what else they have to say.
When I started this investigation, I was 25 years old. I didn't care that much about politics, and I definitely didn't care about conspiracy theories. It changed me, and it changed the way that I think about reality, and think about the world, and think about history.
You hear that? All of this is peppered in through 4 long parts.
So much more skeptical of everything. You can't really come back from that. You can't just like learn about that and compartmentalize it.
You can't really come back from that, is what he says. Yeah, what he's talking about is called learning. Learning changes how you think. Reality changes how you think. If someone knows that a man is a killer, they are going to avoid walking across that person's lawn, while the people that are ignorant to that fact keep on doing it. The type of subtle thinking that this piece promotes is fucking dangerous, period. It is. Danny Casolero was murdered, period. But somehow they bend this documentary to seem as though he may have killed himself. Even the investigator in the documentary states towards the end something like, I know who was there and could have killed Danny, and that was Danny. He says this: they begin bending reality and bending Casolero's murder and bringing his murder into question. It's very convenient in the middle of this documentary about him. They make asinine statements after they've shown a few facts in this documentary that are even beyond argument. It's beyond argument. This is the medic who was on the scene of the Casolero murder. Let's check out 3 facts. That's all we need.
These were deep cuts, deep enough to the point where the tendons had been severed. So when you picked the arm up, the wrist basically flopped. Now, I've always said, you can't ignore facts. You cut your tendons, you can't hold something. Those are simple facts.
And he's absolutely right. Those are simple facts. If you take a razor or a knife and cut through the tendon of your left hand, it is impossible for you to then hold that razor or that knife and then cut through the other tendon. Impossible. He couldn't have done this to himself because both wrists were through the tendons cut. See, this is beyond retard shit that someone would even question this. But they do. It's not possible. Now, here's another fact. I'll show you it right here.
He began to put all of his Inslaw info in this briefcase.
So all of his info about Inslaw was in a briefcase that Casolero carried. There he is.
And when his motel room was searched after his death, it was gone.
Now we have learned that after Danny Casolero's death, his briefcase and key documents for his book are missing.
His briefcase and key documents for his book are missing. So his wrists were cut, both of them, through the tendons. His documents are missing, and they embalmed the body. That's another fact, is that he was immediately and mysteriously embalmed by somebody or somebodies before they even contacted the relatives. This only happens in these strange cases. You know, name one time with proof, you know, where under ordinary circumstances someone got a free embalming, free cremation, or other service. It doesn't happen. It's done to cover evidence. This doesn't happen in real life. He was murdered. That's a fact. In fact, the biggest conspiracy theorist in this piece, the whole thing, is an FBI agent. So let's listen to him doubt and question a death. He is going to doubt and question a death, doubting in a way that resembles many other doubters of events from modern times. Here is a guy who is part of the octopus, according to Danny Casolero, and he ended up dead, and the FBI agent totally and completely doubts it. Let's check it out.
You received approximately $10 million from Israel in July 2004, correct?
That's correct.
He went to that deposition and then died 2 months later.
One day, New York called me and said that he had died of a heart attack in Switzerland. I said, "Are you sure?" I said, "Well, what happened to the body?" He said, "Well, it was cremated." I said, "When? That night?" They said, "How'd you know?" I said, "I'm just following the con."
He's just following the con. See, police and agents from pre-9/11 or pre-2012 will tell you that these things are how you spot something wrong. And the new ones are dumb enough to claim it as normal, or want you to believe it at least. Now, Casolero's investigation and evidence got to the point where PSYOPs got involved. And I believe at least 2 of the guys that he was involved with before were already PSYOPs guys. Right? But then they drop in some full-on PSYOPs agent. Drop him right at a bar where Danny hangs out. And the documentary guys are completely unaware of this. Completely unaware that this guy was a PSYOP agent. So let's watch and listen to them find out that this guy was injected into the scene to befriend Casolero, and that he was a PSYOP agent. Now, to be clear, they are on the phone with the PSYOP agent's son. So let's check it out.
They met coincidentally at a bar in Virginia called the Sign of the Whale. The writer was writing this book about this obscure political scandal in D.C., and your dad's response was, "Oh, I know all about that."
Wow. One thing, I guess, to be careful of is part of my dad and his counterintelligence and what he was capable of. They called it psychological warfare, what he specialized in. The writer could have been getting played.
Could have been getting what?
Played. You never know. You would never know who's smart. Part of what his specialty was to be able to infiltrate or track information to find out, what someone potentially knows, what they don't know.
So they totally find out that he was a PSYOPs guy. Psychological warfare, psychological operations. Let me show you something awesome. When this guy on the left, the documentary maker, hears it, his face is priceless.
The writer could have been getting played.
Could have been getting what?
Played. You never know. You would never know.
See how he recoils for a second? You cannot hide emotions the first time you hear information. And he literally recoils like, oh, fuck. This doesn't fit my documentary. The look on this guy's face, it's like, I'm supposed to be making this subversive, underhanded documentary about researchers being mentally ill, and this guy's son is backing everything up. Fuck. This is awesome. And you can tell it completely irks him.
Could have been getting what?
Played. You never know. You would never know who's...
See his face right there? That's fucking awesome.
Played. You never know. You would never know who's...
Right there.
Could have been getting what?
Played. You never know. You would never know.
So let's get to the brass tacks of it all. A guy was investigating Danny Casalero's death. His alleged friend decided to make a documentary about this guy investigating it. There is lots of information about the case thrown in all through it, but there is only one common theme, and that is that all people involved in investigations and the fringe are crazy, make things up, kill themselves, and live miserable lives. This is really what the message is. This documentary gets on its knees and sucks the mental health industry off. Right now, they are working hard to flip the script on mental health, stating that people believe in religion are insane, normalizing diddlers, stating that people who question science are insane, alluding to the idea that people who question the mainstream narratives are insane. And this documentary goes right along with that if you are watching it correctly. That is the message it is really trying to leave you with. Watch it. If you have already seen it, watch it again and pay attention, and you will see it is not what it appears to be on the surface. It is a propaganda piece, and its purpose is to make researchers and people on the fringe appear antisocial, crazy, and heading down a dark road, period. And I'm going to end with this. I want to remind everybody about the advice on my channel and website that has been tacked to the top of it since almost the beginning. It states that this is a strange game in which the only winning move is not to play. And every word of that is true. But this documentary brings up the game. It literally brings it up. What I have had tacked to my site since the beginning. Let's check it out.
Once you start playing the game, it's like playing any game. You don't really want to get off the board until you won.
You can investigate without playing the game. Playing the game means playing with other people. And Casalero's Achilles heel was following what these people were telling him without looking at the people themselves with a skeptical eye. None of what this piece is trying to allude to is true. You know, for example, I am knee-deep in research of a subject that is way on the fringe to most people. And I do normal and fun things every day. I enjoy my life. I'm not in a basement staring at tack boards with suspects' faces with yarn going from face to face. I'm not sitting with spiders crawling on me while I stare obliviously because I'm obsessed with fantasy. And neither did people like Dave McGowan and others. You know, it's just ridiculous. Old friends who have no instincts or have no drive are not going to get this. They're not going to get it. No one expects them to. The difference between 5 years old and 20 years old is only 15 years, but that is a lot of growth. And at 20 years old, most people don't associate with the same people that they did in kindergarten. And it's no different between 25 and 40. 15 years is 15 years. Just because somebody is butthurt that a man doesn't want to drink, joke around, and have barbecues every weekend doesn't mean that they aren't living a meaningful life. In fact, it's quite the opposite. People that can drink and barbecue every single weekend of their life are empty people that compulsively shop and fill their life with meaningless crap. They talk about TV shows and fictional characters. They are spectator living. because they are empty. You know, I applaud people like Danny Casolaro and Maury Terry, people like that, Dave McGowan. It doesn't matter what some person is trying to project or what some documentary filmmaker is trying to project, because that is what they are trying to do. If you watch this or watch it again, it is clear that is what they are trying to do. The actual message of the Octopus murders is pure propaganda and part of the mental health Bolshevik message. Reality is good for people, not bad. And that's it for now. Look out for Charlie.
I don't like the world now. I mean, before I always knew I was a son of a bitch. But now I'm the only son of a bitch I know. Hey, make way for a real human being. Get out of the way, yeah.
Look out for Charlie.
Charlie, what that son of a bitch did. I want him stoned.